I want you to picture a day 30 years from now, and I invite you all to close your eyes. It's June 22nd, 2051. You wake up to that annoying sound of your alarm buzzing, and you get up and get ready for your day. You pour yourself a pot of steaming coffee or tea, and put it in a to-go cart because you're running a bit late. When you step outside, I want you to pause and look around. What kind of world do you see? What color is the sky? What does the air smell like? When you touch your face, do you feel a face mask? Listen, what do you hear? Are there birds singing or is there silence? When you breathe in, does fresh air glide down your throat or is it thick and choking? Did we do it or did we not? Keep your eyes closed a moment longer and ponder that. Now open your eyes. I'll be 47 when I walk out of that door. And the world that I want to see is one where we did it. We got our act together. We cut our emissions down to net zero. There is forest surrounding my house and birds flutter around in a bright blue sky. Nobody is wearing face masks. And the air is fresh and clean and smells like last night's rain in a deep green forest. That is the world that I want to see when I walk out of that door. But unfortunately, it is not the world we're headed towards. I grew up in a little town on the east coast of Australia called Otford. My house is surrounded by forests and big, tall and slender trees. In the spring, there appears a blanket of color as flowers begin to bloom and the leaves take on a deep, lush green. As the weather warms up, more and more wild parrots come, gracing the forest with their bright red and green plumages. The deer and kangaroos also become more plentiful. And with them, the dangers of wildfires and the unbearable heat. I remember one really hot day when I was 10 years old. I was in school when I heard a girl say excitedly, 2 more degrees and we get to go home. Our class thermometer read 38 degrees Celsius, or 100.4 in Fahrenheit. I didn't know it yet, but I would soon. I was experiencing the effects of it without really having a name for it. I'd heard the word before and I kind of knew what it meant. But it wasn't until much later that I really made the connection between the increasingly regular heat waves in my home country and climate change. Now, before you roll your eyes because you've heard the words climate change too often, or because you think it's an overdone topic, or because it's taken a back seat in the whole of relevance in the face of the pandemic, because we no longer hear about Greta on the news or on Instagram, the issue hasn't gone away. Last year, Australia caught fire. I was forced to watch from as far as 1 billion koalas, kangaroos, and other wildlife perished. As 250,000 people fled their homes, not knowing if they would have a home to return to. As my family talked of the orange sky and the thick smoke surrounding not only my house, but the entire country. I'm not here to guilt you or tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm also not here to hold your hand and tell you that if we continue as normal, that everything will be okay. The truth is, we often feel too small or alone to make a difference, so we simply don't start. But we are not alone. And every single person in this room has a choice about what kind of world they want to be a part of. Greta Thunberg is a perfect example of this. She started off undoubtedly feeling so small and alone, and yet she created a movement, an enormous ripple effect that spread and spread. Climate change is not my fault, and it's not your fault. It is the fault of a broken system, a system that values profit over people of planet, a system that is not going to change of its own accord. But our voices have the power to create a ripple effect like Greta's. like a tiny stone thrown into a pond that creates a ripple which spreads out and out, disrupting and changing its entire surface. For many of us, we want to be those change makers, but we don't know how. Green School's mission statement says that we are a global community of learners making our world sustainable. It is the ideal place to create a ripple. And some of us have. They're referenced, we know their names. But how do we create an entire community of people who feel empowered to be and want to be those change makers? The term change maker in itself is broad, and also a positive affirmation of what is possible. I feel that we should be more explicit on what it really means. It means saying no, even when inconvenient, to the products and consumerism that is damaging our planet. It means using your privilege to empower other voices who don't have that same opportunity. It means showing up and engaging with events that actively raise awareness and protect our ecosystems and fight against climate change. It means empowering others to make a change also. Yes, creating your own ripple, but helping others to do the same as well. It means taking every opportunity you can to further your knowledge of these issues and really take action. I believe that if we are to create a community of change makers and really walk our talk, Green School needs to implement more classes and programs that actively help to empower us to create that future and be those green leaders of tomorrow and inform us of these issues. I reached out to students to see if they want more classes like this, and 80% said yes. For me, like many of you, having seen the effects of climate change firsthand, I want us to strive for better. By implementing more of these classes and programs, we can be that stone that creates a ripple. We are in a unique position at a school that is already talking about things like climate change and actively wanting to build a better future. So we should use that position to lead, but not only talking about being change makers, but by really empowering each of our students with all of the tools they need to do so. And this shouldn't just be for our young people either. This should extend to the entire community. In Block 5, I ran a class called Inspiration to Climate Action. I brought in climate activists from around the world, virtually of course, from places such as Japan, Hawaii, the Philippines. Some were familiar faces, such as Peggy Oki or alumni Sheena Suyuki or Clover Hogan. While others, it was our first time meeting them. Bringing their unique perspectives, these activists talked to us about their experiences of climate action on the front lines and gave us advice and answered our questions. Each of them helped to shape our mindsets and inspire us to take action. For me, this was a humbling experience. It is one thing to care about protecting the planet, but it's another thing entirely to dedicate one's life to it, to be totally devoted to creating a better world. And these activists were doing just that, and the amount of wisdom and passion each of them had was incredible. It was important to me that my students use what we learned from those change makers and be part of that real action. So together, we created a collaborative project to initiate positive change within Green School about things we really care about. Many of the students were passionate about fashion, but we're also concerned about the huge impact the fast fashion industry has on the climate. So we decided to create a clothing swap. A small action that can create a wider ripple through getting people to stop and think about the impact of the clothes they wear and making conscious choices about which businesses they support. It was a process to organize, but in the end, it was so worth it. We were shocked by the amount of people who brought in clothes and how much of our community really wanted to be part of that positive impact given the opportunity. On the day of the swap, we took over the first part of the class schedule to host a screening of several different documentaries to raise awareness about climate change as a whole, about the current solutions out there already, and about the impact of fast fashion on the climate. When the swap began, people flocked to our little tables, And we're already asking, when will the next clothing swap be? And so, seeing as I'm graduating in 2 days, I asked you guys, when will the next clothing swap be? By the end of the swap, we had so many clothes left over due to the sheer amount that people brought in. And so we opened it up to the local community, to the drivers, the staff, the workers, to give out the leftovers for free. Because this was also important to us, that we be inclusive in our programs and extend to the wider community. And we not only learned about fast fashion and consumerism culture, but actually activated an alternative and spread that knowledge. For the final part of the class, I gave students the opportunity to come up with their own individual projects to initiate positive change for the planet. Some were ambitious, like introducing a cap on the amount of meat sold in supermarkets, while others incorporated their passions, such as creating art out of waste. But they shouldn't just be a once-off thing. These programs and opportunities should be embedded into our system. Programs that empower us to create a ripple which affects positive change within our community and in the larger systems. I wanted to find a way to ensure that these classes and programs would be integrated into our system in a clear way that wouldn't get lost. So I suggested the idea of a new credit in our graduation credit requirements. A credit for the planet. Now, before you worry, this would not be adding on any extra workload, but instead exchanging one of the 7 Pathways credits we already have for one based around climate awareness and action. One that would involve classes that actually teach us how to be those green leaders and how to deal with and mitigate climate change and protect our planet. This would also allow students to take these classes without stressing that they're not getting the credits they need. Like a few people who wanted to take my class but couldn't because they needed to focus on their science or math credits. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting with a few teachers to pitch this new credit idea and see how we can implement more of these classes into our program and really figure out how we can teach about these important issues. In a few days, I will graduate and leave these bamboo arches behind. My hope is that Green School will empower us each to be that stone that can create a ripple by offering students more classes and programs that actively contribute to furthering our knowledge of climate change and empowering all of us to really be those change-maker green leaders, to create ripples that will affect change, positive change, within our beautiful island home and across the world. This is my stone in the pond of the climate crisis. One that I hope will be the beginnings of a ripple that spreads and spreads to the furthest reaches of the pond's edge. What will your stone be? What will you do tomorrow to create a ripple or even a wave? To every single person in this building or online, I ask that you don't go away and forget about this talk. Instead, you turn your passion into action and you rise up for the only planet we have. Thank you.
On Christmas Eve, 1968, astronaut Bill Anders snapped a photo of the Earth as Apollo 8 orbited the moon. Those three guys were surprised to see from their eyes a planet looked like an Earthrise, a blue orb hovering over the moon's gray horizon with deep oceans and silver skies. It was our world's first glance at itself, our first chance to see a shared reality, a declared stance, and a commonality, a glimpse into our planet's mirror. And as threats drew nearer, our own urgency became clearer as we realized that we hold nothing dearer than this floating body we all call home. We've known that we're caught in the throes of climactic changes some say will just go away, while some simply pray to survive another day. For it is the obscure, the oppressed, the poor who, when the disaster is declared done, still suffer more than anyone. Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not to wait. So I tell you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality where, despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marvel, this little true marvel, to master the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give next generations the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. So, Earth, pale blue dots, we will fail you not. Just as we chose to go to the moon, we know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. We do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn, we carry the weight of the fates of this celestial body orbiting a star. And as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an Earthrise. To see it, close your eyes, visualize that all of us in this room and outside of these walls or in these halls, all of us change makers, or in a spacecraft floating like a silver raft in space, and we see the face of a planet anew. We relish the view, we witness its round green and brilliant blue, which inspires us to ask deeply, wholly, what can we do? Open your eyes, know the future of this wise planet is right in sight, right in all of us. Trust this earth uprising, all of us bring light to exciting solutions never tried before, for it is our hope that implores us at our uncompromising core to keep rising up for an earth more than worth fighting for.